So at this point, you have turned in section 2A, 2B, and 2C. I'm either in the process of grading those right now and returning them, or I have already returned them with suggestions for your revision. Now remember, you learn how to write by writing, not listening to the old man talk about it here. You learn how to write better through revision. I welcome those revisions. Get them back to me. You can revise these as many times as you want to bring your grade up. That's your incentive. What you're really doing is making a better communication, and that's the point. But for this section, I want to go over with you the content for section 2D. This is the section in which you are going to attack the opponents of your position. You're going to pick out 4 or 5 points that they make in support of their position, but they are also 4 or 5 points with which you disagree. Now, I have given you that little guide for the development of the paragraphs, that little separate sheet that I mentioned earlier in the separate short introductory video. Go back over that. I want you to use those sentence frames that I have given you in that guide as the first sentences in each of your paragraphs in section 2D. Actually, I want you to use them in section 2E as well. If you will use those sentence frames, then you won't ramble and you won't stray, you see, from the purpose of this section. So, paragraph by paragraph, and I'm looking for 4, 5, 6 paragraphs in section 2D. Each paragraph introducing a point with which you disagree that your opponents make in their argument on behalf of their position. These are going to be analytical paragraphs. That is, you're going to be bringing in quotations from their articles which state their position, but then you're going to be bringing in information, quotations, summaries, paraphrases of information from the opposing arguments that support your point, you see. So you're going to start each paragraph by saying one of the points the opponents make is their claim that so forth and so on. They like to say, and then you set up the quotation. However, this is wrong, and you're going to then introduce information from an opposing article, an article that supports your position, you see, in your refutation, in your attack on their position. So each one of these paragraphs in section 2D should start with a topic sentence which states their position, a position with which you disagree. It's one of their premises. You're going to introduce either a paraphrase or a quotation from that article in which they state that position, and then in the bottom, that is the response to that quotation, you're going to introduce opposing information from your articles in the form of a paraphrase, quotation, or summary that refute that position that you disagree with. So that's the outline for each of the paragraphs in the body of the paper. Now you can go back and look at the sample analytical paragraphs which I introduced earlier when we had the analytical paragraph illustrating paraphrase. That model addressing the Facebook controversy is a really good example of an academic analytical paragraph. Follow that as a model and you will do well. So that's section 2D. I'm looking for 4, 5, or 6 paragraphs, very well developed paragraphs, following the model of the analytical paragraph that I just mentioned on Facebook in the content of section 2D.